Welcome everybody to our evening meditation, the end of September already, and continuing with this idea of contemplation as part of our spiritual formation and what we can do to control our conscious mind to make more space for being better connected and in the presence of the divine. So as often, a couple of words from Richard Rohr as we start, who says, "I am just like you. My immediate response to most situations is with reactions of defensiveness, judgment, control, and analysis. I am better at calculating than contemplating." In fact, don't most of us start there? The false self, he says, seems to have the first gaze is the word he uses. I would say to have the first word in almost every situation. On my better days, he goes on, when I'm open, undefended, and immediately present, I can sometimes begin with a contemplative mind and heart. Often I can get there later and even end there, but it is usually later. And he goes on to say it's clear why so many spiritual traditions insist on daily prayer. In fact, more than once during the day, morning, midday, evening. Otherwise, he says, I can assume that I am back in the control of small and personal self-interest. And that really struck me, that rhythm of life, the setting ourselves to pray or just be still at regular intervals so that we don't engage in that first reaction to situations. And so tonight we go through our own routine of adjusting where we're sitting to feel comfortable but connected to the chair, connected to the ground. Sitting upright if we can, hands in a comfortable position in our lap or resting on the thighs, and eyes gently closed if that helps, or using the image on the screen. And we begin with 2 deep cleansing breaths in through the nose and out through the mouth, and again. Really feeling the lungs filling up, feeling the stomach expand and rise, and then letting everything go. And as we breathe more deeply, intent on letting go too of stress or anxiety. Anxious or stressful thoughts and feelings which are part of our evolution. We shouldn't think they're abnormal. They're probably still a natural state for many wild creatures who will be at risk from predators, so have to be on alert. But hopefully we've evolved and we're not under threat most of the time, and that threat isn't going to be life-threatening. So we don't need to read the world as being threatening or anxiety-causing. We have the tools to consciously control our mind away from these unconscious patterns. An article in the Sunday's Observer with Billy Connolly, who says he dealt with his most despairing thoughts by trying to enjoy them. He said, well, just don't try and analyse them. You're wasting your time. Just watch them as they roll by and you'll be fine. Just watch them as they roll by. Because we are not our thoughts. We can step back, and as Billy Connolly says, just watch them as they roll by. So briefly bring your attention back to the breath. Let all the focus be there. Perhaps as you consciously breathe more deeply, you may sense a wider calm throughout the body. You're focusing on the breath, you're not engaged in conscious thought. And maybe try following the breath. Imagine it as it comes in through the nostrils, down the windpipe, all the way into the lungs expanding, the diaphragm rising, stomach rising, and then the reverse, the air leaving, escaping through the mouth, stomach falling. How wonderful that is happening 50, 60, 70 times a day, a minute, without us really consciously being aware of it. So following the breath and following maybe that physical movement of your own body. Or listen to the sound of the breath. Or perhaps more subtly, imagine that we're breathing in calm. Maybe even attach those words to the breath. Calm. Or tranquil. Because for these 30 minutes or so, we can leave behind anything that has been disturbing or worrying us. Here, right now, there is nothing to do, nothing to fix. We trust ourselves to the compassion of the universe, of God, and the unfolding of our lives. Breathing in calm. Breathing in peace. Maybe breathing out tension. Breathing out worry. And any anxious or even despairing thoughts, with Billy Connolly, just watch them roll by. You can detach from them and let them go. So as you continue to breathe, one or two thoughts around how we use contemplation from Richard Rohr and two of his colleagues. First of all, Richard Rohr says how his home life is at two extremes. The one is very busy, visitors, calls, working on his centre for action and contemplation. But on the other side, quiet and alone. He says our practice, whatever it is, must somehow include the problem. Contemplation is not the avoidance of a problem, but a daily merging with the problem and finding some resolution. As I quoted him at the beginning, he says, "By nature I have a critical mind and a demanding heart, and I am impatient, both gifts and curses. Yet I can't have one without the other, it seems. They are both good teachers. Solitude and silence allows them both, and invariably leads me to the second gaze, the gaze of compassion, looking out at life from the place of divine intimacy." His colleague Mirabella Starr says, "Choose to see the face of God in the face of the bus driver and the moody teenager, in peeling a tangerine or feeding the cat. Decide, mean it. Open your heart and then do everything you can to keep it open." And James Findlay said, "I came to the realization I could cultivate a contemplative mindset, a contemplative culture in my heart, by committing to a daily quiet time in which I could once again learn from God how to love and be loved by God. So I began to get up early each morning. I would light a candle and sit out on the floor in the living room in an interior stance of silence and openness to God." I've tried now to start joining the lay community of St. Benedict at 6:45 for early morning prayer, and today we used a Lectio Divina with Psalm 19, verses 6 and then verses 11. "The law of the Lord is perfect, it gives new strength. The commands of the Lord are trustworthy, giving wisdom to those who lack it." And then, "They give knowledge to me, your servant. I am rewarded for obeying them." And then this is the key: "None of us can see our own errors. Deliver me, Lord, from hidden faults." And there I think some of our contemplative practice can come into play, so that those errors, those characteristics, those automatic responses of the body, Richard Rohr's defensiveness, judgment, control, perhaps as we go to contemplation, "Deliver me, Lord, from hidden faults." That's when we can start to see and change those habits. And back to Richard Rohr. "Unless we are led to some kind of contemplative practices that continually reveal our argumentative, biased ways of thinking, we won't move into a new stage of life. What we need is a sustained practice that rewires and transforms our hearts and minds." And here it is that the sustained practice of contemplation can help, as it involves letting go of those things that we use to define our false self, our ego self, our separate self. And it helps us access our true self, the part of us that is always connected to God. Contemplation teaches us how to live in this open place where we watch reality come and go. We learn from it and let it change us. And finally, Brian McLaren, who suggests a practice focused on being here with God. He says, here is the simple word by which we show up, respond to the one calling our name. Here I am, in the presence of a mystery. Here I am. May the real I and the real you become present to one another, here and now. And so we'll move to our silence with some music from Salt of the Sound called Beyond Here. We'll have the first words of this are, and I'll reach. Oh, I'll reach beyond here. I'll reach, and I'll reach beyond here where you call me. And in this silence, use it as works best for you. Whether that's to return to the breathing and use that as a means of calming and quietening, or another technique is to imagine yourself walking down an inner staircase to an inner room, what we might call your heart center, and just resting there. Or with Billy Connolly, step back so you're able to observe, be aware of your thoughts, and just watch them as they roll by, or as they float away. Or maybe even just use the mantra, here I am. We go into silence to the sound of the gong, which will bring us out at the end. I'll reach where you call me, beyond here. And so we gently come out of our silence, perhaps taking another deep breath. Bringing ourselves back into the room. Maybe gently stretching. And some closing words just to repeat from Psalm 19. Reverence for the Lord is good, it will continue forever. The judgments of the Lord are just, they are always fair. They are more desirable than the finest gold, they are sweeter than the purest honey. They give knowledge to me, your servant, I am rewarded for obeying them. None of us can see our own errors. Deliver me, Lord, from my hidden faults.